Right, so the Tories, they love to crow about growth, don't they? But with growth figures just out of a spectacular 0.1%, down from the dizzy heights of 0.3% over the previous quarter, we're basically in recession. But don't for one moment think such miserable figures have meant nobody has benefited, because of course the super rich have. Nothing like an economic depression for them to make a fortune. Heck, they even kept making money through the pandemic when the rest of us were relying on government handouts to make ends meet. No cost of living crisis for them either. And now, one of their number, one of the super rich is running the country, completely unelected by public mandate to do so. Rich Rishi being the first PM to make the Sunday Times rich list, thanks to no small part to having married a billionaire heiress and those shares of hers in her family IT firm Infosys. The Sunaks are the 222nd richest people in the UK, very much amongst the top 1% of the country, the 1% having amassed two-thirds of all new money from what growth there's been over this past year, as much as money between them as the bottom 70% of the country. It's not right, is it? And how many times have we heard the Tories tell us those with the broadest shoulders will bear the burden? Yet it always seems to be our incomes that get smaller, our shoulders that get impinged on. When you're that rich, you can engage in ways of avoiding contributing to society. Just look at Nadhim Zahawi. Perhaps he could give the rest of us some tips. I jest, of course. Taxation is your contribution to a civilised society. Only the savage pays no taxes. The words of American former Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, if you've heard the quote before and wonder where it came from. So Howie, therefore, should, you would think, be dressing like Tarzan, and the entire Tory party should rename itself the Captain Caveman Party, perhaps. You better Google that one if you're under 40. But it brings us back to those miserable growth figures too, because economic growth, although finite, is stagnated if money ends up in the coffers of those that don't use it, don't make it work for the benefit of society. And for that to happen, it needs to be spent. It's no good at ending up in the elite's equivalent of a Scrooge McDuck-style money bin. It needs to be being spent, driving businesses, creating jobs, the meaningful growth we can see all around us that benefits us. Money has to work for that to happen. Rich people getting more money than they already need don't do anything with it. Lining their pockets is fruitless. Lining ours so we can afford to buy food again and not queue up at food banks, so we can afford to pay our bills, many of which need to come down anyway, of course, have more disposable income, perhaps. Who can remember having some of that? Which in the sixth richest country on earth, you'd expect more people to have, to spend on luxuries, make life that little bit better, a bit more comfortable. But by spending it, we support and strengthen and, yes, grow the economy. Figures like 0.3% and 0.1%, which get headlined as growth, when really it's stagnation, get cheered by the Tories when it's nothing to cheer about at all. It is just insulting the rest of us, 13 years into some proper Tory-inflicted hardship as we are. Whilst the rich get richer, we've had no real terms pay cuts, no raises, no proper benefit uprating, exactly the kind of action that would get the economy going. But instead we have a government hell-bent on avoiding any of that and are in fact actively fighting it. Take Robert Jenrick, honest Bob, the Tory MP for Newark and currently a Minister for Immigration, though of course he's best remembered as the Tory Housing Minister who tried to bend planning rules for the billionaire former proprietor of the eternally batshit Daily Express and got caught. A bit like Zahawi again, really, isn't it? And his HMRC bill mysteriously paid when he got caught. Or those stables he was heating on expenses a few years ago, which were suddenly an oversight when he got caught. Anyway, back to honest Bob. He was doing the media rounds this morning, you see, telling Kay Burley on Sky that as much as they'd like to give people more money, many trades and professions and services, as we know, have reached the end of their tethers regarding their own incomes, having been too little for too long, and are taking strike action. You might have seen some of that being mentioned on the news. They, the Tories, simply won't do that, of course. They can have admiration, they can have respect, they can have claps of a Thursday evening even, but that won't pay the bills, fill empty bellies, or buy the baby a new hat, Bob. Jenrick's excuse is that it's unaffordable and will drive inflation. Ah, yes, inflation again, driven by excessive profiteering, as it has been mostly since we haven't had proper pay rises in years, by those elites and the big grossly undertaxed corporations, notably those energy companies. It's coming down now all by itself, of course. You might have noticed that at the fuel station lately, it's coming down a little bit. On clothing, it's come down as well. Hopefully food prices will soon follow. Sunak's poised to take credit for all of this, of course, having had to do nothing to achieve it. Don't let him. But unaffordable, really? You, the government, that can print as much money as it ever needs? That could print money to put in people's pockets by way of increased wages and supplemented income short term, thereby restoring the health of our economy. a better way than saying growth, I think. It's a sickly thing right now, really. Wages would naturally rise in line with demand and new job creation along with it, increasing tax take and allowing the government to print and spend even more money to spend on investment in all our goods and services without fear of stoking inflation. And at some point, any short-term supplementation would no longer be needed as wages come up to where they should be. The Tories are literally doing this to help with our energy bills right now. So we know that they can do it. Do you know what would really speed things up, though? Oh, wealth tax. Oh, that word. To pay for emergency increased spending now, because God knows the rich can afford it now more than they've ever been able to before. And boy, they absolutely could afford it before. Honest Bob's response to this, of course, is that the independent pay review bodies, they're the ones that tell us, the government, how much money there is for wage increases, and they make recommendations based off of that. But that's not very honest of you, is it, Bob? You, the government, set the budgets for these so-called independent pay review bodies, so their recommendations can only come within the limits of the budgets your government imposes on them. Pay review bodies are just a convenient excuse for the government to hide behind, and we should have none of it. Kay Burley certainly didn't. Bob went on to say that it would be better to incentivise more, but that's Steve Barclay, the health minister's line to nurses, that if they want more pay, they should work harder. But how much harder? How many more hours could a nurse put in when there's no more hours left in the day? Every refusal to engage with those striking over safety issues, pay and conditions is a Tory failure because they can fix things overnight. Instead, they're intent on going to war with the working classes instead of truly addressing the rank inequality in incomes right now and the factual, functional damage to the economy that comes with that. The Tories have this reputation for economic competence, but it's a myth. It's a myth passed around by the rich list billionaire press barons on behalf of their other rich list pals, an economy that works for them and never for us. And now the country's led by one of them too. So it's no wonder the Tories are being so militant now in their opposition to ordinary working class people and a country run in the interests of the many, not the few.